Is it?
Hi, we are back with another hangout, and this time we have a special guest, Peter Ivanov, um, from Germany, but actually he is Bulgarian, and we will talk about managing virtual teams, lead and motivating virtual teams. First of all, Peter, thank you very much for being at this hangout, and I would like you to first give some context of your experience in virtual teams and why you start working virtual teams.
Yes. I'm glad to be with you, Filipe, and with you guys. I have no clue how many of you, but we'll find out. So, my name is Peter Ivanov. I'm Bulgarian, and I just got my German pass, so now I have dual citizenship, Bulgarian and German. And I have over 20 years of management experience managing virtual teams. My last job was head of IT services for Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Africa, so quite a large virtual team. And then that's my passion. My passion is leadership, and because the world's going global, and the way of working becomes more virtual, trying to merge leadership and virtual way of working. What else is interesting about me? I have 5 daughters at home, so only girls, one marriage, one wife, 5 little girls. And my passion is sports and particularly javelin. So I'm still throwing javelin athletics. It is kind of a way to balance a little bit the virtual lifestyle. So to hold something and to do something tangible. Is that sufficient, Philip?
And to throw javelin, you have to do it in a non-virtual way. Well, there are some games. I did some Olympic games actually, virtual, but it's always better to do it in person. So
Yes.
thank you for sharing that. Quite an extensive. Uh, way. Um, the first question that I want to address is what is different about leading virtual experience in leading virtual teams? What, from your own experience, you find different in leading virtual teams?
Mhm. I think the main difference is the distance, and with the distance, the limited opportunity to communicate. So the leader has a very little face-to-face time, and he or she has to be very impactful. So these rare workshops, when everybody is together in one place, have to be well planned and impactful. And then I think this distance, and again the inability to chat and to have informal conversation, I'm creating a special communication that caters for this informal. It creates forums like a weekly call where people can exchange, again, many to many, not just one to one, some personal and informal information. So I think, um, again, because the space and time to be together physically is limited, this time has to be used very well for setting the goals, and people identify with the goals. And then once people met and meet as individuals, as personality, I think the leader, the manager, has to maintain this momentum. So people can really retain their relationship, which then is a key factor for trust.
Peter, one thing that is interesting, what you were saying is that um, we always get the idea that if we are doing contact using in a virtual way, everything is more formal and how you can create experience that people can really have the have the same experience that they had in face.
Mhm. I think the line was breaking up, so you asking me just to make sure I understand the question. You know, it seems to be formal in a virtual communication. So how you can create a similar experience like the face-to-face one? Was that the question? Mhm. Well, I think the key point is that
Yeah,
you start.
exactly, exactly.
Okay, so I think it is very important to start the relationship correctly. So in this again, the face-to-face meeting, the face-to-face workshop, you have to seat the seats, you have to plan the seats correctly. I'm doing it in a special way, which is very, very kind of basic as well. So I ask people in this face-to-face to present themselves in two slides, one personal lifeline and one professional lifeline. And there they highlight their, top highlights from their personal life and professional line. And this personal one, very often the managers ignore. But this is quite rich. So I've done it as a coach, even in local teams which have worked already for 20 years, and they discover, new things, and that brings them together. Their relationships go deeper. So I think it's very important to start in the right way, to plant the right seeds of this relationship so people understand better and deeper of each other. And then I think once they have kind of felt each other as individuals, then with a frequently enough, I do it on a weekly basis. I think that worked for me in this, as I mentioned, EMEA kind of context. You maintain it. So people have on a weekly basis a highlight to share. And if you know that somebody is passionate about, sport or about his little child, and you get regular updates, people open up. So to some extent, it's a mindset. I think technology have a secondary importance. Once you put the right mindset and you trigger the curiosity and the interest between the individuals, then with the frequent formats and hangouts or other forms of video conference are just good enough, to maintain the relationship and to maintain these interpersonal relationships. So again, it's a mindset, and as a leader, you have to set it right in advance.
One of the things that is complicated for many people is, okay, I can communicate with my team online, I can do stuff online with them, I can work, but to really motivate them to do some team building, I have to do it face to face. Is that true, or you can do it offline? And by the way, let me only say one thing to our audience. If you want to make some questions to Peter or me, you are free to do it. The box for it is activated, so you can do it at any time, and we will be very glad to answer. So, Peter, how we do the team building?
I think I kind of my preferred way is that they meet at least once a year, face to face, and there you have a very, very interactive, very intensive kind of 2 or 3 days workshop. But then I think you can still do it virtually. You can motivate them virtually. And one key part of this is the goal. So I do the goal setting in a special way, and they should be very clear. And I do it in this face-to-face format. And I make a key distinction between local and virtual teams. In a local team, you can cascade the vision in like 3-4 annual goals, big strategic goals, and then you assign in a team of 10, like 3 individuals for each goal, and they go for it. In a virtual team, my personal experience was a bit frustrating. And as a javelin thrower, I'm doing everything, I give all, and then in a virtual context, if you share the goal with like 2-3 other individuals, sometimes it may happen that they don't give as much, they don't answer your forum, don't respond to your emails, and then you as a group, you may fail. So I break the goal in as many goals so everyone has his own goal and everyone, he or she, can shine if they achieve. So I think if you set the goals right, which leads to the team vision, and then you have a regular reporting, which can be done virtual on these weekly calls, and then I do a monthly call as well, which is quite formal, and then people report in a structured format. then you create this momentum because people start to deliver. You know, they are quick wins. Some deliver quick, some things which matter for the whole team, and then you maintain the momentum. So I think the goal setting is key, and I would recommend that everyone has him or his or her own goal. And then you could be creative. I mean, the virtual allows for creativity. It not necessarily has to be, you know, multimedia and top-notch kind of online products. You may go for creative reporting, but the point is to do it on a regular basis and to celebrate the little successes, the milestones that lead to the goal. For example, in one of our projects, we have a reporting with parachuters which were approaching the island because we set the price. If we deliver 3 months earlier, we go to Canary Islands. And then people were seeing, you know, how each of them, these 20 countries involved in the project, which were supposed to migrate to global shared services, they were approaching the island. So I think it's a matter of clear goals, clearly set goals, ownership of the goals, and then reporting, not necessarily top-notch technology reporting, but something visible and transparent, which gives feedback to the people. Where do we stand now? You know, and who performs well, who is not performing very well should be also transparent so he can or she can receive help. So I think it's a trick between goal setting and creative reporting. And then interactive forums. If you just send reports by email, wouldn't do the trick. You know, people have to present themselves, their own contribution, their own progress. Everyone hears, and then there is a picture that, you know, snapshots the current state in a frequently enough manner.
So, Peter, what you are saying actually is that online doesn't have to kill the offline. That the best is to combine both and to create much more significant face-to-face experiences. So, in a way, you eliminate those boring, let's say, meetings where people are they meet only to present or to do some work together, and that's the only reason to meet. And in the middle, they do some socialization. So what you are saying, if I understand correctly, is that you use the face-to-face momentum to do more of the socialization and less of the actual work. So that you use the online for the actual work, and of course a little bit of socialization, especially if you don't have the opportunity to meet first.
Yeah, pretty much. Good, very good summary.
So, what tools can you use to lead and motivate people? What kind of tools you use normally to lead and motivate people in virtual way?
Yeah, it's always a mix, as you pointed out. It's a mix between, you know, tools, online tools and technology, and then, you know, one-to-one typical leadership tools. So, for example, you know, as I set clear goals and everyone has his goal. I think that's very important, this clarity and ownership. And then people also have decision-making freedom. They own the goal. For sure, they can come to me as a leader for support, but they have decision-making freedom. Because in the virtual world, you know, time zones, you have some barriers, and if people have the freedom, that motivates. Then I would do, for example, a monthly call one-to-one, which is also very important. You have the weekly group call where you as a team, you know, see where do you stand, and you get some socializing factor, this informal update by everyone. But then one-to-one, I have a conversation with each of my direct reports or the leadership team, and there we go. We may touch upon performance objectives, this goal that they have one-to-one, and see if they need individual support. For example, if there is any improvement feedback, I would do it one-to-one. I would never raise, you know, I would never raise critique in front of everyone. That's another basic, but it has even worse impact in a virtual. When you record, for example, the call, and then people can watch it offline, and then somebody is criticized, it kind of multiplies. So never ever. But then in this one-to-one calls, it's a constructive discussion. We touch upon the goals and the performance objectives. we look at some development plans, areas that we agreed about, whatever, communication or whatever is the development area. And this is also motivational, so people don't feel isolated. Sometimes, particularly the low performers, they have their own goal. They're trying to do it, but sometimes, lack of sufficient skills, or they don't get enough traction. They don't get all emails responded on calls. They need support. So this is a way to, bring them back to the boat and to the journey. And then, so that was like leadership tools, feedback, monthly feedback. Twice a year, I do formal performance appraisal. We go through the performance objectives and we look at the KPIs and we have a snapshot. So where do you or the particular team member stands? And then in terms of technology, the weekly call, normally I do telephone conference. Some people can join video conference as well, it allows. So I have good experience with WebEx, for example, as a tool, but there are many of them nowadays. And the monthly call, the weekly call is a telephone conference on purpose, because in order to get your like 90-100% attendance rate, you need to be flexible. Some people doing home office, some people, if you do it lunchtime, Central Europe, in Australia is already 10 o'clock, and in Brazil is just 6-7 o'clock in the morning. So you need to allow for flexibility for people to join, or some are at the airport. But the monthly call, I do it always video conference, and there I invite the next organizational layer. So that's another important factor. In a large team, it doesn't help if you have very aligned leadership team, but the ivory tower kind of syndrome. You need to start creating the link to the next organizational layer and the whole team, the whole organization. So on the monthly call, the next organizational layer is invited. They hear what their bosses are talking about. They hear where do we stand with each of our annual goals, and they can ask questions online, which are then in a Q&A session answered. So I think, again, a mixture between leadership tool and technology. But the main point is really clarity. And then the boss, my approach is I don't take one of these annual goals. I have no goal of my own, but then I'm highly available. So if they need my support, email response or call response is quite high. I see myself as a supporter once the goals are clear, to remove roadblocks, to escalate to senior management or somehow step in some conflict resolution, which is also motivational. I mean, from my perspective, it doesn't work if the boss delivers his own goal and he's always busy and never have time. Better everyone has a goal, but the boss is available within a day, to answer a call or to respond to an email, or even to bring some senior stakeholder when, it's a political issue to resolve. Does it make sense?
So yeah. Of course, it makes, and I think it's very important to stress that point that when the team do it on face-to-face, it's very important that sometimes you have to deal with individuals. So especially when there is some performance, you really need to address each team member and do it in a public way. And it's very, very important that if you do it in the middle of a meeting that several people are present in face-to-face, there is no recording of it. But if you do it online, it's very important to understand that might be recorded, and people might see it again and again and again and again. So it can be even a kind of joke.
Absolutely. If it's a positive, if it's a praise. Sorry.
Yes.
No, I'm saying if it's a praise, it works positively. This multiplier works for the team. So you could praise as much online, so many people can hear it. If it's negative, it can have bad consequences, particularly with Asians. Asians and safe face. If you
it's like a medal.
You can commit a suicide.
Oh, losing.
Yes.
So So
I'm not hearing
the
any.
situations. Let's imagine if you had this kind of situation, how you deal with negative.
Can you repeat?
That
I've only negative.
happening online.
Mhm. I didn't. Now I don't hear you. I see you perfectly, but I don't hear you.
How you handle negative situations. So imagine a situation at. Okay, so we are having some technical issues from the beginning. How you deal with negative situations in a meeting, in an online meeting? Let's imagine that there is some discussion that goes bad. How you
Mhm.
deal with that?
In online meeting, I think that's part of that's okay, as long as it's not to nail down somebody and say you are bad, which is kind of basic. Uh, if it's a conflict, it's better to discuss online in this conversational way. It's much better than people start to copy each other and you have a chain mail. So I think high-performing teams normally they handle conflict better. They're quite honest. They raise the point straight to the point and they go for resolution. So I think if there is a negative situation or a conflict, I would call a meeting and then you would call the minimum number of people required. Sometimes it has to be the whole team if it has implications. If it's a conflict between 2 or 3 individuals, rather have it a bit more closed. But then that would be the conference format, because this many-to-many is important, and it's important not to write emails, but interaction to be real time. And then we go to kind of basics of conflict resolution, trying to get the perspective of the other people. But to your question, if it's negative, I would call a conference, not try to manage by email, and try to contain it a bit, because sometimes it's less productive to have people which are not impacted. But sometimes, if it impacts the strategic goal of the team and the bonus of everyone is on the line, sometimes it's to get the whole team. But again, in an interactive format. So as long as it is not individual, like poor performance because of lack of skills and something, I would call a meeting. But if it's something that somebody has to develop or there is a blind spot, I would do it individual, one-to-one, again in a video or audio conference format.
Okay.
Cannot hear you right now.
Are having so we will yeah because of the technical issues
Okay.
we will finish for now and we will continue this conversation in another hangout.
Okay,
So
let's do that.
thank you very much. Sorry about the technical issues. Um,
No problem. Thanks a lot, Filipe. Thanks for the opportunity, and we will continue.
being a part of this hangout, and
Okay.
thank you very much. Bye bye.
Thanks a lot.